Hiatus is a word that no band wants to hear. For an actual definition, the word hiatus means a period of time when someone, such an activity or program, is stopped. With the whole Manon situation with KATSEYE happening, it had me wondering, how often do band members go on hiatus? While doing my research, this happens more often than one might think. Some bandmates go on hiatus, take a few weeks or months off for reasons, come back and the group can continue with their duties. Others go on hiatus and they don't come back. Other hiatus can cause the whole group to decline. So let's go through a few examples of members of a band or group going on hiatus. Before we begin, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. It costs free $99, it helps out the channel, and you'll have zero regrets doing it. So without further ado, on to our feature presentation. Manon Bannerman, KATSEYE. It's only right that we start this video with the inspiration behind this whole topic, but thanks to other YouTubers and parasocial fans with so much time on their hands, this hiatus became a rabbit hole. So I'm going to try, no guarantees, to keep this somewhat civil. February 2026, KATSEYE was riding a high, coming off 2 Grammy nominations and a Super Bowl commercial, but just as the month was coming to an end, it was announced that Manon was taking a hiatus for health reasons, physical and mental, with the full support of Hype Geffen and the rest of the members. And this is where the messiness begins. Manon made a statement saying that she was perfectly healthy and adding on to her liking, then unliking, a post where someone made a video highlighting the mistreatment of black girls in pop groups. And this is where fans started to theorize that this was not her decision, more so Hype's and Geffen's. Theories increased when Manon unfollowed Missy, their manager seen on Dream Academy documentary, and later removing KATSEYE from her Instagram bio. More red flags occurred when the band announced a new single and video with Pinky Up without Manon, and later an EP without Manon. And it should be noted that the fans started to dread that Hybe and Geffen were phasing her out the group entirely. No sweat, Coachella, Manon's been dreaming of this, and fans were getting optimistic that she would return on stage, and Hybe would announce that she would, before rejecting said statement. Manon was in attendance for both weekends, and even got to touch the stage, just not with KATSEYE. While not a performer, she was on stage during Pink Panther's set dancing. The rest of the members were borderline silent on the hiatus, likely due to contracts and NDAs, and as of the making of this video, this hiatus is currently ongoing with no resolution on site, but I will say a good chunk of KATSEYE's fanbase have left the fandom of this whole saga. But speaking of KATSEYE, Megan Skindeel KATSEYE. And apologies if I mispronounced that last name. Manon was not the only KATSEYE bandmate to go on hiatus, and fortunately, this among the rest of this video is pretty straightforward. Just when the group was starting, Megan was not seen. While in South Korea, Megan suffered a back strain. It was said to be minor, but turned out to be more severe than what was presented. She wound up missing all of KATSEYE's activities for the rest of 2024. During this time, she missed a Good Morning America performance which introduced America to KATSEYE, also an appearance on the Kelly Clarkson show, and other mall tour appearances. Megan did return in 2025 and set for their gnarly Beautiful Chaos comeback. But at least this hiatus got a happy ending, unlike this ongoing soap opera they got currently going on. Jessie Nelson, Little Mix. 2020 was an odd year. COVID year, happiness was a void, and Little Mix was rolling out their 6th album. But 1 month before the album release, Little Mix hosted the MTV Europe Music Awards. Not part of the show was Jessie Nelson. The group announced that Jessie will be taking her hiatus due to medical reasons, but the group still released Confetti in November 2020. But December that next month, the hiatus took a turn for the worse as the group announced that Jessie will not be rejoining Little Mix. The group would try to soldier on as a trio, but as Perry and Leanne became mothers and other priorities were starting to take shape, Little Mix announced their hiatus as a group after a 10-year run, something most girl groups can't say. AJ McLean, The Backstreet Boys. 2001 was a very dark year for AJ McLean. Backstreet was starting to gear up for their Black and Blue tour, 1 year removed from wrapping their Into the Millennium tour. AJ's troubles began that year with the shoot for The Call. His scene required him to be on set in the wee hours of the morning, AJ was struggling to stay awake, so a friend decided to offer him cocaine. AJ turned it down initially, but realizing that it would help him get through the morning, he snorted it up. This was intended to be a one-time thing, but he got hooked. Then tragedy struck. In the spring of 2001, AJ lost his grandmother, and this sent him into a depression, and to help, cocaine. Enough said. AJ missed a Kids' Choice Awards performance to grieve his grandmother's passing, but AJ's health spiraled out of control. In Boston, Backstreet was set to make an appearance at Fenway Park to throw the first pitch. AJ has been cooped up in his hotel room for days until getting a visit from Kevin. The two got into an argument when AJ refused to leave his hotel room, but the final straw came when he offered Kevin cocaine. Kevin said that he was done with AJ, he's dead to me, and Kevin left the hotel room disappointed. And it was at this moment it hit AJ. Within the next day, he took a flight to Arizona to check himself into rehab. The next day, the remaining members of Backstreet appeared on TRL to announce that AJ was going into rehab and the Black and Blue tour was postponed. And what's crazy was that the hiatus worked out perfectly for both parties. The band was also set to lose Nick as he was battling a hand and wrist injury at the time. Once out, the tour continued, but by year's end, Backstreet as a band would go on hiatus. The band has since reunited, and as for AJ, he will be in and out of rehab, but today he reached a level of acceptance and healing within himself. And by the way, I'm not going to count Kevin's late 2000 hiatus, as he actually announced his departure from Backstreet. Russell Neal, high five. Russell Neal is a guy who I don't have a lot of nice things to say because of a video I made in the past, but he was part of the R&B group High Five. In 1993, the group was set to work on their second album. Russ and the band realized that the money was funny, and he posed an idea that the band should hold out until their label pay what they owe, or the label sits them down with the group to discuss the dilemma. While not a terrible idea, the rest of the members decided to soldier on because if they indeed hold out, they could hurt future earnings. So the band moved on without Russ. They filmed a video, She's Playing Hard to Get, as a quartet, and throughout the video, there were scenes of a dancer that made it seem like Russ was there. Then tragedy struck. While on the road, the band got into a serious accident. Most of the members got out unscathed, but for Pooh, his luck wasn't so great. He will become paralyzed and medically unfit to continue in High Five. He requested and urged Russ to rejoin, which he accepted. And while working on their third album, the band started to shop for other labels as their contract with Jive was expiring. Giant Records took them in and offered them a huge guarantee. But the band decides that Russ' cut of the money will be reduced since he held out, and that will lead Russ to leave the group for good. High Five recorded one more album before going on hiatus, and as for Russ, just watch my High Five video. It has some grim information on what he's up to. Melvin Franklin, The Temptations. Melvin Franklin, the bass, and to many, the glue of The Temptations. He has one of the most iconic vocals of all time. Anyway, by the late 70s, The Temptations' success was waning. They left Motown for Atlantic, and most of their bookings were just fans nostalgic for the golden oldies. While preparing for a European tour, Melvin was shot in the leg and hand in a carjacking gone wrong. Or right, because he got pushed out of the car. The Temptations would go on to the Iron Curtain and perform while Melvin recovered. Recovery took longer as he was also battling arthritis. Melvin will return in the 80s and the group returned to Motown, but his long-term injuries unrelated to the carjacking will concur, and by the 90s he was medically unfit to perform. He would pass away in 1995. Paul Williams, The Temptations. Staying with The Temptations, the heart, soul, charisma of The Temptations was Paul Williams, but by the late 60s going into the 70s, Paul's health was in a tailspin. He once wasn't a heavy drinker, but with the Temps' grueling schedule and him battling depression, he caved in. His fellow groupmates tried to intervene as his alcoholism was now affecting his stage performance. Richard Street, Otis's old friend from the distance, started to fill in gradually. First, Street would sing off stage with Paul's mic turned down before coming on stage altogether, all to the chagrin of Eddie Kendricks. Eddie did not like the idea as he believed that Otis was phasing out Paul. Paul would return briefly to record the smash hit Just My Imagination, but by that time, Paul went to the doctor and they found a spot on his liver. And because of this, he was medically unfit to perform, and Richard Street will replace him full time. Eddie Kendricks will quit The Temptations shortly after. In 1973, Paul was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, and then there's a ton of conspiracies behind his death, but that's another video for another day. Cindy Herron in Vogue. Cindy had not one but two different hiatuses from En Vogue. The first came in 1993 when she became pregnant with her husband and stepped away from group activities. In 1995, En Vogue appeared on the song Freedom from the movie Panther. She did not appear on the song nor the video, and at the same time, Terry released a solo album, Southern Gal. But in 1996, she rejoined En Vogue in time for the group to record the comeback single Don't Let Go Love in 1996, and the next year, EV3 was released. Now, fast forward to 2004, the group released Soulflower independently. The group was slated to go on tour to promote the project, but Cindy chose not to participate as she was on maternity leave. Again, Max, who was inactive with En Vogue at the time, took her place while she recovered. Once off maternity leave, she rejoined the group and never looked back. Q Day 26. This is based on Making the Band for Season 4. The group was working on their second album, but was having creative differences. Q wanted to push for a crossover sound, while the rest of the band wanted to stick to what they know. Not to mention Q was dealing with a ton of stress, some Diddy related, some non-Diddy related, but tensions boiled ahead when Q got into a huge argument with Brian. Days later, after getting into another argument with Robert, Diddy called for an intervention, and at the conclusion of this intervention, he put Q in timeout, and he did not join the group for a cruise performance. Q did rejoin the group just in time for the live finale, but sometime after this live finale, the group announced Q's departure from Day 26. Day 26's initial run didn't last long after this either, and apparently, Q was battling mental issues that is still affecting him to this very day. At the end of the day, group hiatuses are far more common than fans realize. From physical health issues to mental exhaustion, label disputes, and career complications, there are countless reasons why members step away from their groups. But interestingly, in the examples covered here, very few were actually caused by internal group tension itself. Sometimes a hiatus is temporary, other times it changes a group forever. These are just a handful of examples of what was presented. And that concludes on hiatus. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Are there any other members that I left off this video? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, hype, and subscribe to the channel, as majority of you watching this video aren't subscribed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The following was a JGTV production. Thanks for watching.